Welcome to this episode of Real Talk. My name is Christy Ivy, and I'm the founder and president of Christy's Cause, a nonprofit in Southwest Florida working to eradicate child sex trafficking and exploitation. On March 23rd, the FBI issued a warning as a result of COVID-19 that due to a newly developing environment, parents and children should be aware of the dangers of online child sexual exploitation. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has experienced over a 90% increase in cyber tips for children being sexually exploited between January and June of this year versus the same time last year. Today, it is vital that we secure our children's electronic devices and establish boundaries for safer use. I've run across so many parents who feel overwhelmed and paralyzed when it comes to children and their electronic devices. Most people don't realize how many security options are available to protect their children. Today, we will be discussing how parents can secure their child's iPhone with Sgt Williams of the Collier County Sheriff's Office Special Crimes Bureau Exploitation Section. He is responsible for managing Collier County's Internet Crimes Against Children Federal Task Force, the Missing Persons Unit, the Internet Exploitation Unit, and the Human Trafficking Unit. He is a member of the Child Abduction Response Team and on the Human Trafficking Task Force for the Middle District of Florida. His dedication and hard work have resulted in the arrest and prosecution of numerous sex predators. We are excited to have Sgt Williams with us today to share how we can be more proactive in securing our children's devices. Thank you for joining us, Sgt Williams.
Thank you for having me.
Why are you so passionate about educating parents on securing their children's electronic device?
That's a great question, Christy. There's a whole world out there that many parents don't realize. Most parents, their kids far surpass them in their technological knowledge. And so they don't realize kind of the things that we are seeing, that we see every single day in our job. So in 2019, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received 16.9 million cyber tips to their cyber tip hotline. Okay, cyber tips are one of the main ways that the National Center receives information about the exploitation of children online. Of those cyber tips, they included 69.1 million files of children being sexually exploited. Okay, that's a huge figure. And we know we've worked many of these cases at the Collier County Sheriff's Office. 2019, we worked hundreds of these cases involving sexual exploitation of children in our county and surrounding areas. And actually all over the United States, we found in our cases where we've had suspects in our jurisdiction who are exploiting multiple children throughout the country. So sadly, we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and that many of these cases are occurring in the safety of the child's own home, many times in their bedroom, and while many times the parents are next door, in the room next door, and many times asleep, on a phone that was provided and paid for by the parents. So the internet is like the Wild West, and it provides the child access to the entire world, and it provides the entire world access to the child in their own home. So it's critical that we make sure that people are aware of this, and we're passionate about prosecuting offenders and also educating the public about these dangers.
When you said that the internet is really like the Wild West, I mean, that's scary, and that's something that parents need to be aware of when they're putting this type of device in their children's hands. What are some rules around electronic devices that you suggest?
One of the worst things that a parent can do is to give their child an electronic device without any restrictions, okay, without doing anything to try to protect them from all the dangers that world provides to them. So we recommend that they put some kind of protections in place, which we're going to discuss today, parental protections. There's a lot of different ways that they can do that. Apple offers Screen Time, Android offers Family Link, and there's a bunch of different apps if they want to do more deep monitoring. We also recommend that they check their child's device at least once a week, and that includes reading all their messages. If the parent does choose to allow the child to communicate on or use apps in which they can communicate with other people through direct messages, which we don't recommend because that's dangerous, But if they do, that they be aware of what those messages are and read them with the understanding that those messages can be deleted by the child before the parent sees them. But that they check that device frequently. A device is a privilege, not a right for a child. Do not allow your children to have electronics in the bathroom or bedroom, okay? One of the most common areas that we see children being exploited when they're being exploited by predators to self-produce or create their own files, manipulated to create files of themselves, is in their bedroom with the door locked or in the bathroom with the door locked. And in some cases, we even hear the parents calling to them, "Why are you taking so long in the bathroom?" And the kid's like, "Hold on, Mom, I'm busy. I'm just, brushing my teeth," but that's not the case, because on the video we can see they're actually producing content for an online predator. And most importantly, have a conversation with your kids about it, because the first time that they hear about these grooming techniques and tactics of predators should not be from the predator, because then they're not going to know what to do, and they're going to respond however the predator wants them to. So we want the child to respond in a way that the parents have instructed them and given them advice on. So it's important they have a conversation, because none of these parental protections are foolproof. They're not going to monitor absolutely everything that they do, and they're going to be at some point exposed to some kind of an issue that they're going to have to know how to deal with.
Wow. Well, I know this is heavy information, and for your normal parent out there, this could feel frightening. But I'm so glad that you're here to walk us through how we can set up parental controls on an iPhone, because even, you just need to move forward in securing your children's phones from here on out. Even if you think, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've allowed my child to have a device this long without security measures on it," it's okay. You just need to move forward. And we're glad that you're here today to really help inform us on how to do that. So would you walk us through how to set up parental controls on an iPhone?
Sure. For an iPhone, first you're going to start on the Settings app and then tap Screen Time. On the Screen Time page, tap Turn on Screen Time. Tap Continue. Next, you're going to tap This is my child's phone. On the Downtime page, configure the hours you want your kid's phone to be offline. Regardless of what hours you choose, calls and text messages will still get through. There are certain features that are not limited by that control, so you have to understand the full parameters of what that control does. On the app limit page, you can choose how long your child can use various kinds of apps, then tap Set App Limit. On the content and privacy page, tap Continue, then create a passcode so you have access to the screen time parental controls, but your child does not. So this passcode should be separate from the passcode to access the phone. After this initial setup, you can return to screen time and settings at any time to make changes to this initial configuration.
Okay, so how do parents set up family sharing so that they can make remote changes or monitor their child's device?
This is a great feature that Apple has that allows a parent to remotely monitor their child from anywhere in the world, as long as they're connected to the internet through either their cellular connection or a data or Wi-Fi connection. So what they want to do is first start on the Settings app and then tap your name to manage your Apple ID and account settings. It's at the very top of the Settings section. Tap Set Up Family Sharing and follow the instructions to link each of your child's accounts. You will then be able to access your child's accounts from that location, and it will show you the name of each child, and you can click on that and it'll open up screen time in the future, and you'll be able to make those changes remotely rather than needing physical possession of your child's device.
Okay, so how can parents specify what websites their child can visit?
It's extremely important to limit adult content for your child's device. Like we talked about before, the internet's the Wild West, and it's very easy for a child to come across inappropriate material. Now, iPhone has this filter set up. It's not perfect. It doesn't filter absolutely everything, but it filters quite a bit. It does a pretty good job. So once you've configured your parental controls, you might want to specify which websites the iPhone is allowed to visit. To do this, start on the Settings app and then tap Screen Time. On the Screen Time page, tap Content and Privacy Restrictions. You might need to enter your Screen Time passcode. If it's not already turned on, swipe the button for Content and Privacy Restrictions to the right. Tap Content Restrictions. In the Web Content section, tap Web Content. Depending on how restrictive you want to be, tap limit adult websites or allowed websites only. Once you make that selection, you can fine-tune the controls by adding websites to the list of allowed or not allowed sites. It's important to note that this feature will only work on the Safari browser on the phone. If you allow your child to have another browser like Chrome or Firefox or any other browser, there's a ton of them out there they can download from the App Store, then these controls won't apply to that browser. Okay, so they would be able to still access that content. That's very important. And we'll talk about how to limit later on in this tutorial here, how to limit what apps they're allowed to download so you can block them from downloading, third-party browsers.
And kids are tricky, so they're going to try to get around these parent controls.
If there's a way, there's a YouTube video that teaches them how to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So how can they set up controls for iTunes and app purchases?
So it's important to limit what apps they can download and what types of things they can do, especially in-app purchases. You don't want a $100 bill at the end of the month for a bunch of purchases that they made. You can control that in these settings. Start the Settings app and then tap Screen Time. On the Screen Time page, tap Content and Privacy Restrictions. You might need to enter your Screen Time passcode. If it's not already turned on, swipe the button for Content and Privacy Restrictions to the right. Tap iTunes and App Store purchases. You can also choose to always require a parental passcode to be entered for purchases.
How can they restrict app deletion, and why is this important?
So it's very important to restrict their ability to delete apps because you have the ability in Screen Time to prevent them from downloading apps, but what that does is it actually removes the App Store app from their device altogether, making the phone nearly unusable. Most kids are not going to even want to use the device after that. It's not really fun for them anymore. They're going to complain a lot about it. So if you don't want to do that particular and go that far with it, our recommendation is that you prevent them from deleting apps. So you have a conversation with them, explaining them what apps are allowed. You can limit the rating or maturity rating of the app, so 14 and less or whatever you choose. And then they have to make good decisions because there may be some apps in there that you specifically tell them you don't want them to have, like Snapchat or other social media apps. But if you prevent them from deleting the app, then you're going to know if they violate that rule because they won't be able to delete it, so they'll be caught red-handed. It'll be on there, and it's not going to go away without the parent password to delete it. So in order to do this, first launch the Settings app, tap on Screen Time, tap on Restrictions, then tap Enable Restrictions if they aren't already. If they are, skip to the last step. Choose a password that only you will know. Toggle off the options for deleting apps under the Allow section. If you ever want to remove an app then from your child's device, you will need to change this feature back to allow deleting apps in order to remove the apps. So if your child comes to you and says, I've got like 10 apps on here I don't use, I need to get rid of them, you can then review those, say okay, and you can change the setting, delete all the relevant apps, turn it back on, don't forget to do that, and then you're back to where you were before.
Okay. So how can they turn off ability to make account or password changes?
So what you don't want is your child to lock you out of your own device. Your child will change the password on you, and then your device will be as good as a paperweight unless you reset the entire thing and you lose everything. So in order to prevent that, go to Settings and tap Screen Time. Tap Content and Privacy Restrictions. If prompted, enter your passcode. Under Allow Changes, select the features or settings you want to allow changes to and choose Allow or Don't Allow. Here are some of the features and settings you can allow changes for. Passcode changes. Prevent changes to your passcode. Account changes. Prevent changes to settings for accounts and passwords. You don't want to allow your child the ability to make account changes, since this would allow them to do such things as change the account password or delete their iCloud account altogether and reinstall a new one of their own choosing.
Oh my goodness, these kids really are very technologically savvy. So we're glad that you're walking us through all this. So how can they prevent deactivating location services?
So one of the great features of the iPhone is that you can share your location with family members or you can have your child share their location with you. But you don't want them to have the ability to turn this feature off because they get mad at you or don't agree with what you're saying, and then you can't find them when you need to. So to prevent that, first set up the device for family sharing, turn on the location services on your child's device, and then select for your child to start sharing their location with you. After that, tap Settings under your name, tap Set Up Family Sharing, then Get Started, then follow the on-screen steps. Second, turn off Allow Changes to Location Services. Go to Settings, Screen Time, then Restrictions, and turn off Allow Changes. And check Location Services. Make sure that you don't forget the passcode that you used for restrictions.
How do you restrict the use of a device during certain hours, such as bedtime, as you were mentioning earlier?
You know, if your child's at home with you and your family and has adult supervision, there's really no reason they would need their phone while they're asleep or during, bedtime. But you can, rather than take their phone away from them, you could lock the device, and you can do that in Screen Time. The way you do that is in Screen Time, tap Downtime. Next, enter the parent passcode, turn on Downtime. Select the schedule to apply to everyday or custom days. You can select a custom schedule of your choosing. Select the hours and days you want downtime to apply. Turn on Block at Downtime. Now, one caveat to this is there are, and I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but there are instructional videos out there that teach you how to get around these settings, and there's some clever ways and some vulnerabilities to Apple's screen time. So just be aware of that, and my recommendation would be to just take the child's device at night and keep it in your bedroom.
Okay. So how can you set time limits for app use?
So one of parents' biggest complaints is that their kid spends 12 hours a day on their phone. So you may still want to allow your child to have access to the phone for doing school research or other projects or things, but you don't want them to play that whatever video game for 12 hours straight. So you can limit their app limits for certain apps if you want. To do this, in Screen Time, select App Limits. Turn on App Limits. Select Add Limit. Select Block at End of Limit. Select the time period you want to allow. Select the app category of either all apps and categories, or select the specific apps that you want that rule to apply to. And then you can select, if you want them to have 2 hours on that app per day. Once they reach the limit on that particular app, that app won't function anymore. But they would still be able to use maybe their school app if a lot of kids are virtual because of COVID. So they could still use their Focus or whatever their school app is required for schoolwork and homework and things like that.
How do you set time limits for communication?
So you can choose who your child is allowed to communicate with and manage their contacts remotely. To do this, in Screen Time, select Communication Limits. Choose which contacts to allow during screen time and which to allow during downtime. Choose if you want your child to have the ability to edit contacts or not. So if you want them to be able to add a contact that they've met without your knowledge, you can allow that, or if you think that that's not okay, then you can choose not to allow that as well.
Sgt Williams, this was great information, and I actually learned quite a lot as you were talking, and just all the ways that we really do have to secure our children's device. Is there any additional information you would like to share with parents?
I would just say that many parents don't know what to do if they find something, if they are doing this and checking their child's device once a week, and they find there's a communication they think is inappropriate, could be a crime. So what a parent should do in that case is immediately take the child's device from them, because we've had cases where the child is allowed to retain the device while the parent goes and talks with the other parent or tries to decide how to handle the situation, and then they come back and the evidence is gone. They've deleted everything, okay, and much more that they didn't even find yet because it was just the tip of the iceberg. So immediately take the device if there's anything inappropriate. Then decide how to handle it. If you believe it's a crime, you need to immediately report it to law enforcement. But make sure to limit your child's access to any internet-connected device, because many of these apps they can log in from another device, a friend's device, another computer, a family iPad, or something like that. and then again, either change the password and lock the parent out, or they could, to that particular account, if it's a Snapchat account or whatever social media it might be, or they can delete all the evidence. So make sure that you take those devices and report it. The quicker you report it, the better. Evidence online is fragile and can disappear quickly, so we need to be able to preserve that evidence, and it takes a detective, and the only way to activate those services is through calling law enforcement.
Okay, so that's very important. Sgt Williams, thank you so much for sharing this valuable information with us. Parents, please take advantage of the additional resources provided in the description of this video. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Real Talk.